So the idea here with the follow-up videos is not to do complete teaching series, but to be able to give you things to work on throughout the year so that you don't just go to the camp and get overwhelmed and learn miles and miles of information when you can't go miles and miles all in 1 week. But if we can break it up and keep you thinking about things, that'll help.
Hi. Great introduction.
I know, really. So that was the downside of filming during business hours. Somebody came in, they opened the door, and then they're like, "Oh, sorry, wrong door." So here we are, from the other side of the room, from Callan, actually. He goes, "Double stops." I'm like, well, that's what we'll start with. So we're not going to cover these in the same order that we did them in class, but just by what comes up. So a double stop series. What is a double stop series? Why would you use it? Well, it sounds slightly cooler and slightly more musically intricate than a single stop, which would be, in other words, a single scale, where you're stopping on a scale 1 point at a time. For example, on a C scale, if I played it all on one string, right? Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Or if you're on, using multiple strings. That you could call that a single stop. So we just call it a scale, but you could call it a single stop scale. A double stop scale, what we're doing is we're stopping on this note of the scale and this note of the scale at the same time. And then we start on this note and this note at the same time. And then we use this note and this note at the same time, and then we use this note and this note at the same time. So we're stopping it. That would become enormously confusing all of a sudden. You're like, "Oh, what? I thought this was supposed to help us out." So what we do is I'm laughing from the other side of the room. What we do instead is we form these patterns that we call runs, because nobody could do what I just did without in real life time. Hey, take a honey, and you're like, I can't. I just can't think that fast. I can't think of 2 different notes on a scale at the same time. Maybe Herbo Jr. probably can. Most of us are not that fast. So we learn these patterns. And the cool thing about the patterns, we can accomplish the same thing, and it's way easier. So for the key of C, if we're just going to start with the center 2 strings. This is what we call a straight. The reason it's called a straight is because, it's straight up and down, 0, 0 fret. The next one we're going to call a slant, which is the 2nd fret over the 1st fret. And the next shape in the scale is another slant, 4th fret over 3rd fret. Then we're going to change shape again to a straight. Now, as I change shape, notice what I did with my fingers here. This is 5th fret over 5th fret. So my middle finger always stayed down as I went through these shapes. From this is called the 1st degree of the scale, which is straight. No hands. Slant, slant, straight, straight. Going up above that is going to be 2 more slants, and then back to a straight. So what's an easy way to memorize this pattern? For whatever your starting point is, the next 2 are going to be different. And the next 2 are going to be the same as your starting point. In other words, another straight. And the next 2 are going to be different. In other words, another slant. And then back to a straight. Why would we use this? Well, it sounds really good. It's a nice way of putting a degree of sophistication into some music that you might not have otherwise considered. For example, I really need some sort of a chord background. Callan, grab a uke. Come be a star. Is it a tune? Yeah, right. All right, close enough for video. Say, "Hi, this is Callan." Callan's now going to play some sort of a chord pattern like C, F, G7. Now the rules for Callan, he's going to keep it fairly simple because we're trying to start with simple and then progress. I don't know what chord he's going to play, but we're in the key of C, and I told him the rules already, so I don't know which he's going to play, but I know it's going to be C, F, or G7. So I could use these and go So there's an example of how we would use those things. So in real life, is that useful? Yeah, in real life, that's useful. You find yourself in a situation and somebody says, take a solo, and you're like, I don't know what to do, I don't know what to do, I don't know the song. Like, whoa, it does definitely helps to know the song before you take a solo. But if you don't, could you use double stops and come up with something that would sound good? Yes, you could. That's useful. If you also know the song, can you use them a lot more intelligently? Yes, you can. So what I did there, you may or may not have noticed, is when he was playing chords, I didn't know what chord he was going to pick, so I waited. So if he's going 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, I might have played my double stops, wait for it until he commits to a chord, and then I'd wait for it until he commits to a chord. Because I know he's going to stay on a chord for probably 4 strums, maybe even longer. So if I'm playing double stops, can you come back again and we'll demonstrate that? Those are different double stops. I'm just messing around. No doing in class, right? That's one of the rules. It's a good rule. It's a good rule. Don't get me wrong. Okay, so Callan's going to play it again, and what I want you to notice is when he changes chords, I'm going to stop playing because I'm going to listen to what he's playing, and if I get a chance, I'm also going to sneak a peek and go, okay, he's playing a C, okay, he's playing a F. But if I don't know what he's going to play next, try it again. I'm just going to wait until I know. So right there, he's playing a G7, here he's playing a C. So see how I kind of wait? Wait and hesitate, and it's going to sound, when I'm doing that's going to sound like, wow, that was an amazing sense of syncopated rhythm that you have. Let's not rule that out. It could be true, right? It could be that I have an amazing sense of syncopated rhythm. It could also be that I'm not exactly sure what's about to happen, and so I'm waiting until he commits. A good analogy in the rest of life for this is watching like a quarterback in football, which I'm lousy at. But I understand the principle is that if I know I can't throw the ball to where the receiver's going to be till I know where he's going to be. But once I know where he's going to be, if he makes a cut and he's running out the field, I can throw the ball and anticipate where he's going to be because he already committed once he commits. So once Callan commits to playing a chord, I know he's going to be there for at least 3 strums, so I can do something that's going to sound good against that. Could I play a more complex double stop series? Yes, but we'll probably save that for a different video. Can I transpose this? Yeah, but we'll probably save that for a different video. For now, let's just sort of see. This is just maybe the first one. I have no idea how many minutes we're into this. If I splice them together, we got to be under 15 to post on our free YouTube channel, because I don't have a pay YouTube channel yet. Maybe one day. What should we talk about on this simple double stop version? Oh, here's a good point on that. It's good to know which chords these are going to resolve to. So this is on some of my handouts. Ooh, and there's a phone call.
Dibs.
Yeah. You get it.
Aloha, thank you for calling.
So the first degree of the scale here happens to sound good against a C chord. Why is that? Well, because it's part of a C chord. These 2 notes are, after all, part of a C chord. What about this? What's this going to sound good with? Well, this is going to sound good with, among other things, G7, because it's part of a G7. Incidentally, it would also sound good against any chord that happens to have these 2 notes, and there's a whole bunch of them. You might not think of them off the top of your head, but this one, D minor, also has those same 2 notes. So does this one. Have the same 2 notes. So does this one. Have the same 2 notes. Not to totally confuse the issue, but for now, to simplify it, think of it as this goes with C, or it resolves to a C, and this goes with G7, or it resolves to a G7. the opposite is also true, and that's something to keep in mind. If I've got one ukulele player that's playing a C chord, and I'm playing this is going to sound pretty good against a C chord. If he's playing a C chord and I'm playing this, so here's what a C chord sounds like with that double stop. At the same time, it's a little kind of chaos, and if I do this for too long, it's going to sound like, what is this guy doing? It needs to resolve. A good way of looking at this is think of like a story or a movie, and if every story starts off with they lived happily ever after, and then the middle of the story is they lived happily ever after, and then the end of the story is they lived happily ever after. I mean, you might like your life to be like that, and so would I. It's not, but that's what keeps life interesting, right? And stories and music. And food too, by the way. Salt is a great example. You want a little bit of dissonance while this is going on. While he's playing a C, if all I play is this, it's going to be boring. It's going to be resolved, but boring. Aloha! How's it going?
Good. How are you? Hello.
So we're going to continue filming on that concept. We're in the back of Lahaina Music right now. We're hiding back here because there's something going on up front. Okay, so just to finish that concept, this resolves to a C. This the open position. This resolves to a G7. This one also resolves to a C. This one resolves to F. That resolves to G. This one resolves nicely to A minor. This to G7. And this back to C. Now again, each of those also resolves to probably 5, 6 different other chords. Bob Brosman just went through and it's like named off 50,000 chords you could resolve to each one of those. It's absolutely amazing. But in real life, because a lot of Hawaiian songs have chord patterns that have, for example, a 1 and a 4 and a 5, for example, C, F, G7 if you're in the key of C. If we just think of those, it simplifies it a little bit. And the idea is you want to play, if you have something that's, you want to put in a little bit of dissonance. So if I'm playing against a C chord, I'm going to do 2 ukuleles at one time, or not really, but we'll improvise it. So this will sound a little good for a minute, but if I do it too long, it gets to be a little dissonant. But if I do this, that might sound kind of nice. If I just stay here, it's boring, because it's the same thing, right? Add a little bit of interest, a little bit of salt, a little bit of spice. I could also go up to here, because this also resolves to C, right? Here's the C chord, right? And I'm playing this double stop. I'm just doing it at the same time. You might go, holy cow, that also looks like a lot like a C chord, because it is. That's another C, so is that. There's a whole bunch of different ways to play all these chords. Get Brad's book. Brad's book is really cool. Did you guys see it? Check it out. So I'm probably coming against my time limit, so we'll use this as the last one, and the stark difference in lighting of the cold fluorescence of the workbench. But this is where we solder stuff and la la la. Anyway, so I'll post this, and heads up, there'll be more coming. Any feedback? Send up a flare, ukulele.jj@gmail.com. Aloha.